Hello, everybody, and welcome to PowerShell Wednesday. Every single Wednesday, we're here live on YouTube, having fun, hanging out, showing new tools, learning some PowerShell. And this week is no exception. And in fact, it's exceptionally good because we have Jeff Hicks, PowerShell legend, in the building. He has a ton of modules. He uses PowerShell all the time. Big advocate, big educator in the space. And you're going to show us a bunch of tools that you have worked on and you use in your daily workflow. Some very cool ones and also some very practical ones. So welcome to PowerShell Wednesday.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a while. I think I did one of these earlier this year. I think back when you were doing it in Discord. So this is all a little new. I thought that I would share basically my day. I'm an old school IT pro. I mean, I started back really in the days of DOS 3.3. So a command prompt has always been really where I live. Yeah, Windows is nice and the GUIs, sure, fine, that's whatever. But I basically spend most of my time either in PowerShell at a PowerShell prompt. So I've got Windows Terminal, which I've got shared right now, my email client, and a browser. And that's pretty much are the only things I ever get into. Now, occasionally, yes, I'll get into QuickBooks for business stuff, but pretty much that's it. Everything I need to do, I do in PowerShell. So I basically run my entire day using PowerShell, and I've built over the years a set of PowerShell tools. And I thought maybe I'll just show those off. They might be things that you might be interested in. Everything I think I'm going to show you is up in the PowerShell gallery or up in my GitHub repo. At some point, I do have links and I'll paste them somewhere to everything I'm going to show you.
If you put them in the private chat, I can post them on YouTube. I don't
Yeah.
think we allow links posted. But I'm actually super excited to show this because I'm a big advocate of finding different ways and having, making creative things with PowerShell and using it for things sometimes outside of work, because you can have a little bit more freedom when it's not tied to like your infrastructure or whatever's going on. And I think that you have so many projects that can inspire that sort of daily use of PowerShell outside of just get, a user, get a computer, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, we always think about PowerShell as being that management tool. I want to manage things at scale. I want to deal with 1,080 user accounts or 500 mailboxes and use PowerShell to manage all those things all at once. And that's great. That's what PowerShell, that's where its strength lies. But you can also use PowerShell just in your day-to-day personal life and work. And that's something that I do. So the stuff I'm going to show you isn't necessarily taking advantage of that, PowerShell as a management tool, but more PowerShell as an interface and doing things so that I'm in the console. But as you're going to see, it's so kind of a rich experience. So I spend most of my time in Windows Terminal. And I'm going to try to move some stuff around here so I can see my screen and see my notes. So I've shared Windows Terminal. Most of the time I'll have and what I like about Windows Terminal is I can have a profile. This is my default profile, which uses my profile script. And I've also set up tabs like this one here, starts PowerShell. And I think the startup is using what I call a mini profile. So there are a few things, it's not full profile, but a few settings I want to have, like my PS readline settings. I want to make sure those are set. So this is kind of a stripped down PowerShell session with no profile, except for a few configuration tweaks. And of course, I always want to be able to have a Windows PowerShell session. And this one is configured to run with no profile. So it's just a bare bones 5.1 session. And then I do have WSL, and I have some VMs that I can also bring up in SSH into, or I can connect to my laptops as well. But for the most part, I come in here and I start my day opening up my Windows PowerShell session. Now it shows me a bunch of other stuff, some of which I'll get to here in a bit. But one of the first things I do is I use the PowerShell run command. This is a module by our mysterious friend. And this is basically it's a dashboard. I think, Andrew, you've used this
Oh yeah,
module.
love it.
So the module really is a framework. You have to build some scripting around the framework. And so I have a module that I have written that allows me to kind of organize all of the things that I typically do. Now, I've actually have kind of over engineered this because there's a lot of stuff in here that I rarely use, but it's there if I need it. So I can come down here to different groups. Like I can manage my newsletter. I have some function I built in, and then you can just kind of navigate down. So if I want to check, for example, I want to really quickly just run that get last boot so I can see my last boot time. I have a script that I use to update my winget packages. So I'll just come down here. This spawns a new session and then reads a list of packages that I monitor. And then it'll bring up a new session using the console grid view. And then I can go through. I'm not going to do it now. I can then pick the ones that I want, hit enter, and that would then update. So pretty much first thing I do every day is just make sure all my winget packages are up to date. I can come down here. I can run other utilities. So some of my apps, like for example, I do music. And so I could come down here and say, hey, launch my music editor. And this will, you can see there in the little yellow box there, it's going to start the program and then also change to the directory with the last folder that I worked on. So I can then pick my score, and when I'm done, my prompt is at the folder, because then I can use some tools that I use to back up my music. Anyway, so this is kind of a handy little tool. PowerShell Run is the module. So I think that's the latest version. So that should keep that. I have a thread job that updates all my modules that I need to keep up to date every time I start my PowerShell 7 session here. So PowerShell Run, really cool. And I just have aliases to make things a little bit easier. So that's like the first part of my day. And if there are questions in the chat that come up, Andrew, just pop in and say, because I'm not really paying any attention to that.
Jeff, I got one right here from some guy named Greg F. Martin. He says, here's the real question. Does Jeff use MS Edit?
Oh, you mean?
Uh-huh.
You mean that? Yes, I use that. Actually, what I really use is Adam Driscoll's PS Edit. Because this has IntelliSense and it's kind of designed for PowerShell, and you can run things in the editor. So this is up on GitHub. It's also let me quit out of this here. So the module is called PS Edit, has one command, show PS Editor, which has an alias of PS Edit. You just have to be careful, because if you're in VS Code, in the integrated editor, PS Edit is also the shortcut to load stuff into VS Code. So just be careful with that. But yes, I do use Edit, the Microsoft Edit, or Adam's PS Edit.
Look at that. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It's always nice. I'm a big fan of anything that allows you to not leave the terminal. You know what I mean? Do it all there. If you're there, it's better to stay there. It's just easier on the brain, literally for getting things done, not only for pure PowerShell reasons.
Yeah, well, I have tons of aliases. For example, if I really need to have, Notepad. Oh, I want to get alias. I just type NP and Notepad opens up, and then I can do whatever I want, or NP to specify the file name, and it opens up that file in Notepad. So yeah, I don't have to go clicking and searching or take my hands off the keyboard to get a mouse and go to, well, I guess I could still use control shortcuts to bring up the run menu from, it's just easy for me. If I can just type a command, that's what I want to do. So that's basically a lot of my day is spent figuring out what's the shortest command that I can run in order to, achieve what I want to do. So some of that, let's talk about some other local tools that I have here. And some of these tools are built using the PWH Spectre Console module. So that's another module that requires PowerShell 7. I think Sean has a few changes. I'm hoping he will push out a new version eventually. I know I've given him some things to work on, and he's told me that he's incorporated them, but I need to see them in a new release. Anyway, so one of the things that I often need to do is I want to, clean up some files in a folder, but I want to be selective. It's more than just a wildcard sort of thing. So what I can do is I wrote a function called select to delete, which uses the Spectre Console read host function that allows me to basically read in a list of files and then view them in a much more colorful, interactive way. So let's give you a taste here. So let me do, see. Oh, I already have it up here. And this has a timeout. I added a timeout. So if I don't do anything within 15 seconds, this will just dismiss, which is probably going to do here. Or I can then just select the ones that I want. And if I hit enter, it would then delete those files.
So Jeff, let me pontificate on some thoughts here for a second, if I could with you, because you're going to show a lot of things in PowerShell, and I think people should definitely borrow some of them. But that's the whole idea, is like, as you use PowerShell, like you've shown here, you should customize it to what you end up doing. If you find yourself deleting files, why not create a quick tool? And you don't have to be that adept at PowerShell to create something just like this. I'd be curious if you could even show us what this select to delete looks like. I don't want to go off the rails, but I think it really highlights
what the code looks like.
Yeah, because I'm curious to see how complex or not complex it is. Because it's not that high of a level of like PowerShell knowledge to be able to start like creating tools just like that.
So I'll share the link, but this is a gist up on GitHub. All right, so I can basically pipe in any list of files. So here I'm creating a generic list for file objects. And then, because I wrote this in such a way that the typical use case is directory, bunch of files, pipe them to select to delete. So I'm always going to be reading in file objects. And each file object then gets added to the list down here. And then at the end, as long as I have files in the list, then I'm just using the read Spectre multi-selection command. And I'm just splatting my choices, my message, and the properties that I'm using to display my selection. And then whatever gets selected then gets piped to remove item.
I love that. And there's so many opportunities for just that exact same pattern right there. Use that tool right there. You're getting something you want to manually sort before taking action in some way. You can create this for a whole number of things. So cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, I took that same idea and I have another command here called out select file that will select files from Spectre console list and then select them to the to something. Because again, what I found myself needing to do, like for my newsletter, if I'm writing an article, I want to put a zip file up on Dropbox, I want to be able to quickly select multiple files and create the zip file. So I could do C work, and let's do this here. Let's do out select file. So I'll run this once without doing anything just to show you. So I can select the file, and then whatever I select then gets written to the pipeline. So now that I know that works, I could then say compress archive. Now we'll do the pass through destination. So let's say I want my demo files and I want this prompt file. Done. So I don't have to quick and try to navigate around and select the files and explore and create and all that. I just pick the files, out select, and then do whatever I want after it's been selected.
Can I make one more comment? Just one more pontification. I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm getting ranty here.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
But a pattern we try and introduce people to in PowerShell, and you've probably done a ton, is like, okay, you're going to start writing code. You get a one-liner, script, function, module ultimately, because we're trying to refine what we're doing in PowerShell. We start with something simple. We figure out that solves the problem. We turn it into a tool that we can reuse. That's tool making 101. Well, that's for tools. If PowerShell is your tool, you need to apply that same thought. And that's exactly what you're showing us here. All those little ways that you make your interactions with PowerShell more efficient. It's not the exact same thing as, writing a module for everything, but it's the same kind of mindset where we're just making things more efficient, because that's why PowerShell is in our lives for a lot of us, to make our days easier.
Yeah. And normally what I would do is I'd use my alias OSF. So I'm not even...
Yep.
So I'm actually going to type even less and just do.
Yep.
Oh, that's anyway, you get the idea.
There's no force on it, but yeah, I think that's really cool. And it's the type of thing also that has to sort of evolve organically. You can't add like a million at one time and actually, you have to like adopt it as you add new things, but it is kind of like cool. You can speak to it. You've been using for PowerShell for so long, but like your interaction with PowerShell kind of gets deeper as you customize it to you. It's kind of, learning PowerShell is a really rewarding experience, but I think also like getting closer with it and customizing it to you is also a rewarding experience in its own right.
Yeah. One other local tool that I use, again, this is similar model, is a command I call import local module. So the use case is I have modules that I have written that are for my use. They're not published to the PowerShell gallery. And I don't put them in the module directory so that they can auto import. I just have to manually import them for my scripts folder. So I have a handful of those that I basically import all the time. So instead of me having to type the path to all of those, I basically just built a little picker to do it for me. And I just do ILM, that's my alias. The information is stored in a JSON file. So I can say, yep, I want to import these local commands and yeah. So instead of me having to manually import all those modules, I just ILM, pick the ones I want, hit enter, and in they go. And now I have those commands and they're ready for me to use. So that's kind of a fun command. Again, I'm managing anything at scale, but it reduces frustration in me having to type something or I'm mistyping something and I don't have to type, these full paths. I can just pick what I want and have PowerShell do the work for me.
And it looks really cool. Let's be honest.
It does look really cool.
I mean, come on. It's like clicky. I mean, come on.
Clicky. I got a little color.
You look like a hacker. I mean,
yeah.
Who didn't want to do this when they were like first getting into IT one day? This is like peak.
The path is to a JSON file. All right. So let's see. What else do I do? Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that I do is obviously I'm running modules. I have lots of little things I try to keep track of. And I have a module that I wrote called PS Work Item. So PS Work Item allows me to create kind of like small project management. It's all stored in a SQLite database. This module uses my SQLite. I forget what do I call it? My SQLite module. So if you install PS Work Item, you'll also get MySQLite. It's a set of commands that abstracts working with SQLite databases. And so all the module is doing is creating work items that I can get with, I'm not used to typing the full command, get PS Work Item. So you can see I've got a database file. I have the task. It's color coded. So I've got categories, which are color coded, and then events that are overdue are in red. Those that are going to be due within a day or so will be in yellow. This category here is for the PS project category. So normally I just do GWI. So if I want to add a new work item, I can say, I need to get order Xmas presents. And I can put in an actual due date, or I can put in the number of days that this is due. It defaults, I think, to 7 days, although I think, if I remember right, you can configure that. So let's say I will do that in 7 days. And I can give it a comment or a category that's personal. If I decide I want to modify it, so I can do set work item -ID. Let's do 309 comment. Description. And I can also set a progress. But wait, there's more, because sometimes I want to manage things and I want to do all this typing. How about that?
Whoa.
So this is another terminal interface, and it just is exposing the database. So then I can come here and find what I want and say, you know what, let's change that progress now. And let's say that's up to 20%, set the work item, or I can add new work items. So I can manage everything. I could add new categories if I wanted here. I've got the documentation. I can look at the database. So all of that, again, I don't have to go anywhere else, but if I want a richer experience in managing my tasks and stuff that I'm working on, that's what I can do.
What project is that? What library?
This is PS Work Item.
I mean, what was being used to display that interface? Was there any other?
Oh, that's the terminal GUI.
Terminal GUI.
Yeah.
Sweet. I do have one other question related to PowerShell Spectre Console, that earlier one that you showed. Do you know if that works over remoting?
It will, I believe it works over SSH, but not over WSMan.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because the WSMan is going to serialize it, and I think it's going to break something.
I think so too. Like the representation would be different or something. I don't know.
But it's almost 2026, SSH is the thing, right?
That's what I hear.
Yeah, that's what they tell me.
That's right.
All right. So, related to my work items is I often need reminders for events. Now, I keep a calendar in my email client, but sometimes I want little reminders right that I can get to in the console here. So I have another module called PS Reminder Lite. And this is a new version of some previous work that I did. This also uses a SQLite database. And kind of follows a similar thing where I can create reminders, and it shows me the ID, the event, the date, the countdown, and I can add new reminders. I've created a little shortcut to show reminders that uses the Spectre console, so I can get a little prettier look, and it's also a whole lot less to type. So between the work items and my reminders, I pretty much always know what's going on, more or less, despite my advanced age.
I do like that approach too of having like, the commands to do it, but also for some things it is nice to have an interface, and you can have an interface and still be in the terminal.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I love the terminal GUI stuff. I'm looking forward to the version 2 to see what that changes and see how much code I'm going to have to change. But
That used
yes,
to
I
be
do love the terminal GUI stuff.
it used to be GUI.cs, I think, right? Before.
Yeah, they're working on an update that will require the end stack requirement.
Gotcha.
So the terminal GUI is the same library that Microsoft's using for its editor, Adam's using for PS Edit, for Out Console Grid View. They're all using the same terminal GUI interface.
Yeah.
So I've just wrote a version to manage my task lists to give myself basically an application to do it. All right. So the other thing that ties all of this together is a calendar. So I have a module called PS Calendar, and this also will be color coded, and you can highlight dates that you want. So the dates, so today is the 3rd, so that's color coded kind of the green. All you can see is blinking. You see, yeah, it is blinking. I'm not quite sure why. I've got something going on Friday. I think I have a call with Jason. I have some other events going on that are not in white. Now, one thing that I do is in my profile, I use my calendar, and right now I have it hidden. I'm going to turn the calendar back on. The command to show the calendar has a parameter where you can specify a position on the screen. And so in my profile, it always positions the calendar in the upper right corner. And what I have in my profile, let's do this. No, not my profile, my prompt, sorry. So I have some functions to hide and show the calendar, but if the calendar, or every time I hit enter and I'm showing the calendar, I'm going to run this script called update tickle dates. And what that will do, let's open that file, open. This doesn't always. I need to have Adam try to update this so it's a little more dynamic. Well, I'm committed now. I've been writing PowerShell scripts for a while, so I have a lot.
Oh my gosh. That is a long list of scripts.
All right, so for update tickle dates, what it does is it loads my PS Reminder Lite module, gets all the reminders that have not expired, and basically sets them to a hash table, and it uses then for the PS Calendar module commands, there's a highlight date property, and that's basically a hash table of dates that you want to highlight. And so I'm just basically updating that value every time I hit enter. So let's say, for example, so right now you can see like the 4th doesn't have any events because it's in white. But if I add a new PS reminder, yep. Oh, I picked the wrong year. That's why that's not showing up. I'm already, there we go. Now you can see that it changed. And the way this is working, is there are no tags assigned to this, but I could set PS reminder work.
That right there is why we write functions that accept pipeline input right there. Just makes everything so easy.
Yeah. So now that changed, you can't quite tell, but that did change the color slightly. It's like a light blue. You may not be able to see it, but if I, oh, and because that reminder is happening within less than a day, that's why it has turned to yellow there. The other ones are green because they're further away. All right. So my calendar. So between the calendar, the work item, all of that, I can really keep a good handle on what I am working on. And let's see what.
Jeff, before we pivot, I gotta. Whoa, my camera! What the heck is my camera tweaking for you, Jeff? Or does it look normal?
You look normal in the screen.
Okay,
on my screen, in my browser.
Yeah, to me it's freaking out, but that's okay. So, Jeff, I wanted to make the observation that, I don't know if you know magicians, but they do like this thing sometimes where they like pull a bird out of the air. Have you seen that? And they just like the first one, everybody's like, whoa. And I feel like that's what it's like with your projects. Like you whipped out the first project. It was like, whoa. And then, you're still amazed at that one. There's just, oh my gosh, there's another bird. And then he like turns to, oh my gosh, there's 4 birds. And I feel like as we keep going through these projects, I'm just getting progressively more jaw dropped at how many.
All right, now you're gone.
I'm gone. Am I back?
We're still rolling, but we've lost Andrew. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, feel good. Anyways, magicians are cool, and I feel like you've written some magic with PowerShell, and I'm very impressed because even like you're showing the color. You have coordinated the color to be another, kind of signifier of context where you don't have to read more, you just kind of get it. And that's what we should all look to do with our user experience in our modules, but also our experience of PowerShell. And seriously, there's not many people who have done it to a higher level than you.
Yeah, I like using color in my formatting. It's like I often will create custom formatting files, and I love incorporating color because that just lets you add another layer of information for the user, which could be you. Doesn't have to be you, but it could be you. All right, some other things that I do that kind of help me, I've adopted over the years. This one is something I kind of started this year. I often find myself going back and forth between certain directories. And sometimes my directories are kind of nested, so it's a lot to type. And yes, you should all learn how to use push D and pop D and all that, but that doesn't always help me. So I have another function that runs in my PowerShell prompt that keeps track of every location that I have been to. So if I change, for example, to dtemp, now if I want to go back to, say, to the dtemp folder, I want to go to number 10. And if I can remember, I rarely can, but let's say I want to go back to a score that I'm working on, that number 5, I can just do L5 and it changes my prompt and takes me right there. I have a JSON file that when I first start PowerShell, it loads like some defaults, like the first 5 are basically defaults. And then other ones just get added as I'm working. So I can do L there. Let's go back to there. I'm working on a TUI version of this. It just present the information, but this works pretty well too. So I can just do LL to showing the list, and I can change the numbers here. Or if I remember the index number, just change it that way.
And just quick question, Jeff, what's a TUI?
Terminal user interface. That's the Windows, like the little console application I used for my work items. That's a TUI. So that's using the terminal GUI and the NStack libraries. The new version, what I'm talking about, of the version 2 of this, will get rid of this NStack requirement. At least that's my understanding, among other things. Anyways, again, if I can speed up and not have to type as much, I use aliases all the time. Aliases are perfectly acceptable when you're working interactively in the console and you're spending too much time if you are not using aliases or tab completion. Why work that hard when you can make PowerShell do the work for you?
I think also it doesn't look good to people because everyone thinks that the only way to write PowerShell is typing these full commandlets out. And that is definitely not the case. You can get, as you're showing here, you can write very little. You just have to do a slight amount of work in customizing, but you can write nothing, and even less in other languages.
Yeah, and then a few other things that I have that I've used PowerShell for. Again, this is PowerShell as a presentation tool, not necessarily designed to be managing anything at scale. Is some of you are on PSBluesky and may know that I have a module that I wrote that allows you to basically do PSBluesky stuff right from PowerShell. So I have a script that I use. I haven't used it in a while. Load. And let's create a new session. So this script basically imports a module, creates a session, does all the stuff for me. I'm going to hide my calendar because that kind of gets in the way. That's why I added the commands for myself to show and hide it, because if you have a lot of display, it gets hidden behind the calendar. And sometimes that just is a nuisance. So I just can temporarily turn it off if I don't want to see it. So the commands. Lots of commands. Lots of them have aliases as well. So there's my profile. If you have the Spectre console module installed, it will render your profile picture like it does up here. And so I'm using a lot of style stuff and stuff from the Spectre console to format this. So there's my profile. If I want to say, hey, what's happening in my feed? And these are all links. So this is a clickable link. It would open, if I click this, it would open up this in my browser. I can do a new skeet. Let's just see here. You can do markdown. No. Make sure I don't do this. Oh, here. Something new that I've added, if you do dash what if, it will preview what it would have posted and actually even kind of format it. So there we go. And then there's the actual link to the post up in Bluesky. If you happen to have Bluesky open and refresh, you should see that post. So I can manage, or if because Bluesky is pretty much my social media platform of choice these days. That's where you'll find me most active. So I can manage and do everything I want with Bluesky right from PowerShell. Followers. All right, so this is the module. So these are all the commands. You can see the aliases. I tried to be pretty complete with that, but the way that I use this is I have a JSON file and a scheduled task that, like every hour or so, parses the JSON file looking for something that is scheduled to be posted. And then because I can just use my skeet command, which is actually new Bluesky post, I basically can, in my PowerShell schedule job, import the module, create a session, parse the JSON file, create the post, and I log it all as well. So that's one of the reasons that I wrote the module, is so that I can be posting stuff on Bluesky without me having to post stuff on Bluesky. And then the last thing that I have, so that I can keep track of what's going on in the community, is, hey, what's the latest episode of the PowerShell podcast? And there we go. So this also, PSPodcast uses the Spectre console command or module, and basically parses the RSS feed and presents information here in a nice, pretty fashion. And there we go. I think Andrew needs to update that picture.
Yeah, we'll get a new one going. Look at that. 203 episodes. Jeez Louise. Love it.
Yep. Yeah, you got a clickable link here. Yeah, and so when you go and you can search for episodes, this will give you this is again a clickable link to the latest episode. The clickable links happen because I'm using Windows Terminal. So Windows Terminal will take any string that looks like a link and make it into a link. So that's kind of handy. And yeah, I may have to parse your description. It fits a little bit nicer, but anyway. So I've got tools like that. Again, it's just PowerShell as an interface tool. I'm not obviously managing the podcast at scale, although I could get podcasts and there's options to download them. So I wanted to, I could get a bunch of episodes and download them locally if I wanted to listen to them offline. That's also a possibility. All right. Oh, I guess one more thing here. We got a few more minutes, right?
Sure.
Oh, we have two other things here. So I'm obviously working on lots of modules all the time. And the challenge that I had a couple of years ago was trying to remember what's the last thing I did on this thing. So I used to leave myself little notes about, okay, work on this next time you come back to this. But I ended up writing a module. Let me show you the module here again. Called PS Project Status. And what this will do, was this will show me for this particular module. I'm in the process of updating it. I haven't touched this in 34 days. I'm on Git branch 3.1. I have some tasks. PS. So those are the things that I need to work on. This information is stored in a JSON file. So when you initialize a project, doesn't have to be a module. Most of mine tend to be modules. It will create a JSON file. I actually have a schema for it. So there are certain statuses that you can put in. It'll show you when it's last updated. It has links to the online repos, your task branches, tags, and comments. So I can go into any project and check to see what was the last thing I worked on. And if I want to update it, I can use the set PS project status to change the status, version, whatever I need to do. And then there are commands to add tasks that just basically add them to the JSON file. Yeah, so everything is just stored in a JSON file locally. So you just have to make sure that this PS project, that you don't include that in your module. So that's in my git ignore is this indication. So that's how I keep track of what I'm working on pretty much on a daily basis, or in this case, I haven't touched this module in 270 days, and I know I'm updating it I'm due to get something new out. So that helps me. There is a command in the module called get PS project report that I can run in my root directory, and it will search then all of the folders. And if it detects the PS project.json file, then creates a report showing me basically a summary of all of these statuses of all my projects. So I can then go back and say, oh, I haven't touched this one in a while. I need to go work on it. That sort of thing. All right. I think that was all I had on my list to show you.
Well, that was quite the list. That was quite the list, my friend. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, one more. We can squeeze in one more real quickly here.
All right.
One of the things that I do is I'm very particular about backing up data. The cloud is great, but it's not a backup strategy. So you still need to back up your files. And so I know today, this is a alias for a script. I have these files that I've worked on today that need to be backed up. I have a module. It's not a perfect module. It's more how I work, called PS Backup. And again, I'll share the link. Basically, the way that this works is I have a text file of directories that I want to monitor. And I have a scheduled job that runs on boot up that basically spins up a PowerShell session that never ends with an event handler using the system file watcher. And so looking for changes to my monitored directories. If it finds a change, it creates an entry in a CSV file in my backup folder. At the end of every day, I have a scheduled job that runs an interim backup. And then on Friday night, I do a weekly full backup to all of my targeted directories. The backup trims, so it only saves like the last 4 backups, and it'll make a copy to my NAS, and it'll also copy one copy to my OneDrive folder. So I've got things in multiple places. Although I don't necessarily need that because my NAS, I have a second NAS at another house, and the NAS is synchronized. So I kind of have some geographic redundancy there. So these are my local backups on my NAS here that I have. So I've got about 8 gig worth of backup, but I basically I can go back a month to find my files if I need them. So this runs, there's a scheduled task that runs on Windows startup, and then this will start a scheduled job. This daily watcher job, that's what's updating that CSV file. And then I'll have, my weekly full backup and the nightly interim backups. So if I want here, so I've got those incrementals because we're in the middle of the week, and then at the weekly backup, those incrementals will be removed, and I'll just have one full backup. All right, now I'm done.
Look at that. Can you give one more shout out to that? What is the thing that allows the text to clear so fancily?
Yes. What is that called? ClearHost Fancily is part of the Fancy ClearHost module. It's one command. He hasn't updated this in like forever, but I don't think it's anything to be done. It works just fine. Yeah, and you can specify different types of clearing, and you can specify the speed and all of that. So I just have some settings in my profile script that set my default parameter values for that command. And I set an alias, basically renamed clear screen to call the command. I also, because I forget, I also have CL. So yeah, so fancy clear host is what gives you the, I don't know. It's fun.
Pretty sweet. Yeah. There's some other
Yeah.
modes you can do with it too that it's just so graphical and so easy. You just got to install something and run one command, and all of a sudden you can do that too.
Yeah.
Can't beat that. Well,
All right.
awesome, Jeff. Well, thank you so much. I have a link to your GitHub in the comments, or not the comments, sorry, the description of this video. So everyone should check that out. Jeff?
I can put here in the private chat a set of markdown links that you can then decide how you want to share.
Awesome. Ooh, awesome. I'll just straight up post it right there. There you go, everybody. Posted in the chat. Well, Jeff Hicks, thank you so much. And for those who didn't know, I'm about to interview Jeff Hicks for the PowerShell podcast. Oh my gosh, Inception. Jeff on the podcast, and then whenever it gets posted, you can look at it in your own PSPodcast. Oh man. But so thank you everybody for joining us. Every single Wednesday we're here. We're having fun. I don't know of any dates we're taking off over the holidays. Maybe there is some. Who knows? We're playing it by ear. And hey, I said that right. You heard that? Play it by ear. I didn't say year. So Jeff,
Yeah.
I know as a music guy, you might appreciate that. We're playing it by ear. Okay.
Yeah, the Wednesday, the 24th is Christmas Eve.
Oh yeah, we're not doing Christmas Eve. Sorry, friends. So thank you, Jeff. We're figuring that live, but you can see us here every single Wednesday, except for that at 2 p.m. Eastern, and check out the PowerShell podcast every Monday. PDQ Discord, discord.gg/PDQ, and Jeff Hicks. Any other, final words before we switch to recording a podcast?
No, just don't be afraid to play with PowerShell and see what you can do with it. It doesn't have to be, we harp so much about, doing things the right way. I bend a lot of rules, but it's just, I'm doing it for me. And as long as I know what I'm doing, it's okay if I bend the rules a little bit, or, I'm not using PowerShell to manage a 5,000 seat, organization. I'm just using it to manage my day-to-day work. But if I can get my day-to-day work done faster and with less frustration and interruptions, then that's what you should be focusing on. Make it your friend and make your life easier. It's the assistant that I have that I don't have to pay it anything.
Absolutely. Wise words, Jeff. Well, thank you and take care, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for having me.